Okay. Please introduce yourself, who you are, and what your profession is.
Well, hello. My name is Miss Jennifer Cambites. I am a high school choir director here at Evergreen Valley High School.
As a teacher or choir teacher, what are the primary goals of this career?
Primary goals for this career would be to be able to teach music to students, particularly I teach high school, so specifically teaching high school choir. The ultimate goal would be performance, so we can bring all of the knowledge that all the students have learned together so that our audiences can have a chance to listen to the full choir.
What is work like on a day-to-day basis? And generally speaking, what is the overall experience like?
Work on a day-to-day basis. Generally, my day starts with obviously showing up at school, and then I set up my classroom. I do my own vocal warm-up so that my voice is ready to sing when my students walk in. And then every class period, the students come in and um, we start off our day with some vocal warm-ups and some sight reading and then working on music. Day to day, it pretty much repeats day to day. What changes would be the vocal warm-ups that we do, the theory exercises, the sight reading, or the music we're working on. And that's what makes it seem a little less like in a rut, because you do have a lot of things that you can change as a teacher throughout the course of the day. The overall experience, I think, I would say it's pretty positive because students get a chance to express themselves with their voices. And the students that love music will love being in the choir. The students that maybe don't necessarily love music so much do appreciate the experience that is not sitting at a desk doing a worksheet, logging into Google Classroom and doing a worksheet, but rather there's a lot, like it's not the same every single day, even though it sounds like warm-ups, sight reading, music. Every day is a little bit different. So I think the overall experience for the students is one of more freedom to do something different and less rigid structure of the daily assignments.
What aspects of your job would you say are your favorites?
My favorite part of my job every single year is when my choir one students hear themselves singing and they get scared that they can't ever be on stage. And then they hear themselves singing maybe 2 or 3 weeks before their first performance, or maybe even a month, and they hear this beautiful sound of three notes making a chord, and that realization that their voices can actually blend together and create something really beautiful sounding. That is always my favorite moment every single school year, with the choir one students going, "Whoa, we sound okay."
If I may ask, if, as you mentioned earlier, because generally speaking, the day-to-day basis is roughly kind of similar, what would you say that keeps you going from like feeling, I guess, uh, stagnant or bored?
That's an excellent follow-up question. You know what really keeps me going? There's a couple things. Number one, the students change every class period. So even though I feel like I have four classes where my day is exactly the same, the students are all different, and what they bring in terms of their strengths and their weaknesses is different. So it kind of keeps me thinking all the time, what does this class need from me? They also bring in energy. And sometimes I have to realize that while it may be my fourth choir of the day, it's their first choir of the day. So just kind of putting my mind in the feeling of I'm on repeat, but this is their first time, and making sure that I keep that, bringing that energy to class so that they don't feel like, oh my gosh, Miss Cambice has been teaching choir for 4 hours and now we walk in and she's bored. So that definitely keeps it fresh and exciting every class period. And then the music that I do with the classes is always different from every class. So even if the first 20 or 25 minutes might seem the same to me from each of the four classes, the remaining 30 minutes is always very, very different in terms of the songs that we're working on.
As a teacher, are there any promotions in this career? And if so, how do they work?
We don't really have promotions. We do get raises, but with education, your raises are based on how long you've been teaching. So in the first, I think, 8 or 10 years, every single year you get a raise. And then the way our school district works is that after that, either the 10th year or the 8th year, then it becomes like every 4 years. In terms of promotions, from a job standpoint, every department here in the East Side District, this isn't true for every school district, but we have department chairs, and they're the people that kind of coordinate between the administration and the members of the department and lead meetings. It is an elected position, so in a sense, it's not a promotion by the administration, but rather a vote of confidence from your fellow teachers to say, I trust you to represent how I feel as a music teacher or an English teacher or a math teacher. And when you go to these meetings, and there's one person from each of the 13 departments, I think, we get a chance to talk to one another and really represent the people that have put their faith in us, telling, the people that are in charge how things are going or how they're feeling.
I see. What drew you to this job and how did you get into this field?
My parents were music teachers till they retired, and I grew up hanging out at their choir room and their band room and being friends with their students when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. My best friends were in high school because I knew them so well. I saw the enjoyment that the students had in my parents' classes and in the concerts. Um, my parents were happy in their job. I mean, I always knew that we didn't have a ton of money, but I also knew that we had a lot of happiness. And the family time that we had together with summers and weekends and mid-year vacations was really an important way to grow up with, for me personally, with both of my parents being able to spend the time that I had off from school with us. And I mean, like I said, we traveled, but we didn't have a lot of money, so we did a lot of camping. um, we had a lot of potluck parties, and we had friends over to our house more than we went other places. But I just, I never felt that there was anything, they never seemed to be upset with what they were doing, and it never made me want to not follow in their footsteps.
Would you say that passion and interest is very important to become a teacher?
I definitely say that because I've joked before, we don't go in it for the money because nobody gets, paid that much. I'm never going to be a millionaire as a teacher. Um, my riches and rewards come in the satisfaction of the students that come into my class and what they learn, of standing on stage and hearing them sing. That's better than any paycheck most days. Um, I'm missing that a lot right now. But yeah, it's hard. It is not easy work. Yes, while every day may start the same and my classes might be structured the same as our English classes and math classes, no 2 days are ever the same. Um, if I'm not feeling well, I can't just, sit at my desk and put my head down and be like, oh, I don't really feel well, so I'm just going to kind of be quiet in my cubicle today and turn my phone off so nobody calls me. No matter how I'm feeling when I'm on campus, I have to be on 100% every single moment, every single time a kid walks out, the students walk into my classrooms. And you really have to have the passion for your subject to be able to inspire those students who maybe don't want to learn your subject to want to learn the subject. Not everybody wants to take English, math, science. Not everybody wants to take choir, but the students that end up sitting in my class, it's my responsibility to make them at least want to learn the subject. And that takes a tremendous amount of energy and passion.
So, what should I do to begin pursuing this career as a teacher and to be more specifically a choir teacher?
Well, to become a teacher in any subject, a student would need to figure out what they wanted to teach. And then at the college level, major in that subject. So if you want to teach math, you'd get a degree in math. If you want to teach music, you'd get a degree in music. The arts are a little bit more specific because we do have, I mean, I have my degree is in string-based performance, but my credential is in music, which to an administrator might look like I could teach band, I could teach choir, I could teach guitar, I could teach anything that's musical. And technically I could, but not every teacher that has a credential in music is comfortable with all of the different classes that fit under music. So I would say if you want to be specifically a choir teacher, a student would definitely need to, at the college level, do some voice training, voice classes. San Jose State has a music education degree where you don't have to focus on one instrument that you are studying for the entire 4 years. You do take beginning instrument classes, voice classes, theory classes. I think it's really important for any music teacher to be able to play the piano, especially a choir director, but even band directors and guitar teachers. I know both of the band and choir guitar teachers on our campus both also have keyboard skills, because it really is like the foundation of all of the music is going to be on the piano. So specifically for music, for any teacher in general, find what you want to teach, get a degree in that, and then your next step is to get your teaching credential. For a music teacher, find the area of music that you're more passionate about. For me, it was always vocal. And then study with good conductors, take classes outside of college, and then that next step is getting your teaching credential and finding a place to get a job.
Are there any classes or, I guess, exercises that you would say you would recommend for aspiring teachers? I know you've mentioned choir teachers or for choir teaching, or what would you say for just as a teacher?
I think some of the best, it's not even really a class, but the best things aspiring teachers can do is really take note of the teachers they have now and the teachers they've had in the past and the teachers they'll have in the future. But for me, I really looked at the teachers that I liked and how they taught their classes. And then I also looked at teachers I didn't like, or assignments I didn't like, or the way a teacher would suddenly spring a test on us. And it really truly was a pop quiz. It wasn't that I just wasn't paying attention the day before. And I looked at the things I didn't like about teaching, and I try not to put those in the way I give my information, because I know I didn't like them, and I just think other students don't like them as well. As a musician, I learn a lot about my classes and rehearsing from being in other groups and other ensembles, whether it's singing or playing bass. Just watching other choir directors lead a rehearsal gave me a lot of knowledge as well. So I would say if you want to be a choir director, even joining, which you can't right now, obviously, but a community chorus, there's a lot of them around, even a college chorus that meets in the evening, and watch how that conductor runs his or her rehearsal from the beginning to the middle to the end. Are there things they do that you really like? I don't like to be yelled at. I didn't like teachers that yelled at me, and I don't like choir directors that yell at me, so I try to not yell at my students. It's really hard to be creative and musical when somebody's screaming in your face. So, just things that I've learned from being in other rehearsals, and to try to incorporate that into my teaching as well.
Are there certain qualities and skills a person should have in order to do well in this career?
Specifically in music, yes. In general, in teaching, I would say the ability, and for music also, a definite quality would be able to improvise or change your lesson quickly. In a perfect world, the technology always works, the copy machine always works, the LCD projector bulb works. The students aren't sad. We're not in a pandemic. But in an imperfect world, as we all know, especially with our distance learning, we can't always rely on the internet. And if your entire lesson is based on a Chromebook and you come to school on Monday morning and there's no internet, a teacher needs to be able to improvise to figure out what they're going to do instead, because you can't just have the kids sitting there for a day like, what do we do today, teacher? So definitely the ability to quickly change things or adapt, maybe not improvise, but adapt to changes. I think a teacher needs at least a little bit of empathy. That's a skill or a quality, to be empathetic for students. Teenagers are going through, even in normal times, a world of emotions. And when they walk into a classroom and you have got the most amazing lesson planned and the whole world's going to be better when this class is done, and the kids walk in and they're like, something tragic happened this past weekend, did you hear? And then if I don't have an empathy to be able to say, hey, I've got this really great plan, but let's talk about what's happening instead. We can do that lesson tomorrow. The kids that come and, I have a good relationship with a lot of my students, so they do come to me when they're sad or frustrated or depressed, and being able to sit and listen and talk and help when they, are running away from home or are borderline suicidal and they come to me, I can't just close my door and say, sorry, I don't know how to deal with that. You got to have that quality of listening, even if you don't have the right answers, which I hardly have the right answers, but just the ear and the time. Everything in my world is important, but if a kid is in crisis, that kid is more important than anything else in my world. And then in terms of skills and qualities for a music teacher, just that knowledge of music, some music theory, love of music, piano playing abilities. Definitely you have to be musical. You can't be, there are people who are tone deaf, just like people that are colorblind. I say this in my classes all the time. People that are colorblind can see, but they don't see different colors. People that are tone deaf can hear, but they don't hear different pitches. And that person really can't be a music teacher. You have to be able to hear pitch in order to be a music teacher. So that would be a quality that you definitely have to possess to be successful in this career. But more than anything, adaptability and empathy. If any teacher has those two things, they should be pretty successful.
What are some difficulties one might face in this field?
Again, generally speaking, in teaching, if you're teaching a subject that is a requirement for graduation or for college, the teacher will end up with students who don't want to be in that class, but they have to take that class. That is a definite difficulty. Same thing happens in choir. I have students that are put in choir that never asked for choir. They have no desire to sing. And that is a difficulty as well. So encouraging the students who don't want to be where they have been placed is a huge hurdle. Some other difficulties are, I can't speak for all school districts, but the first 4 years in this school district, your pay rate is pretty low. And I've heard of teachers that supplement their income by getting other part-time jobs. But your first couple years of teaching, it takes so much time and energy. I just don't see how they can have an evening job at Starbucks or Home Depot or things like that. So just understanding that if you can get through the first 3 or 4 years, things really do start to change after that. And then the other thing, again, speaking of new teachers, is they have to go through you get your degree, and then you get your teaching credential, and then you get a job, and then all of the new teachers basically have to go through this process to learn how to teach all over again. And they've just done that. They've just spent a year in college learning how to teach, and then they have to do all of this portfolio work and videotaping lessons, and they meet once a week with an advisor. And it's this huge 2-year process called their induction. You have like one chance to not do it right, and you can fail once and then resubmit everything. And if you fail the second time, even though you have a teaching credential, you don't get to keep working. So it can be really scary for the new teachers that are like, wait, I already went through this process and now I have to do it all over again. And this is a lot of work and it's really hard. So the state definitely makes it difficult for those brand new teachers to take their passion and their empathy and their kindness and their skill and want to keep doing it.
What are some things one should take into consideration before deciding to enter this field? And are there things that you wish you had known beforehand?
I don't think there's anything I wish I knew beforehand just because my parents were in education, so I really knew what to expect. I knew that I was going to be putting on concerts. I knew how long a school day was. I knew about the vacations and the summers. I knew that it wasn't going to be, $1 million a year job. Some things to take into consideration would be the first few years. The first few years are going to be hard. I mean, at one point there was a statistic that I think in the first 4 or 5 years of teaching, 50% of teachers quit. And I don't know if it's still that high, but take into consideration that you're going to work. You are going to work harder than you've ever worked those first 4 or 5 years. And then you'll get it down. You'll gather your repertoire. You'll definitely develop your teaching style. You'll be a little bit older than the students when you start teaching at 22 and your seniors are 18. That's not a huge age difference. So, by 4 or 5 years down the road, you're 27. Even your seniors, you've got a decade between them. So, if you really like it, I would say definitely stick with it. But just understand those first few years are going to be pretty hard. And make friends, make other teacher friends. If you're a group of new teachers, when I got hired, I think 24 years ago at Independence, there were about 15 of us that were hired at the same time. And I'm still friends with 5 or 6 of them because we went through all of the new teacher stuff together and I made friends and I had people to ask questions of, even though they don't teach the same subject as I teach. So definitely make new teacher friends. Make friends within the department that you're teaching. So, when I started teaching, I was teaching with my dad, actually, and I hung out with him all the time, and he's the one that said, you need to go make friends. I was like, but Dad, I've got you. He's like, no, you need to go make friends that are not me. And that was a really good piece of information. I know when the new teachers have come here on our campus, Mr. Hall has a good group of, he's a guitar teacher, has a good group of friends outside of the department. Our band director, Miss Spieler, she just started last year and she started to get to know people outside of the department, and then March happened and she didn't meet anybody. So I think she knows 2 teachers. And then of course our new drama teacher, Ms. Harder, hasn't met anybody yet. So just having those connections on campus, because it can be a very lonely profession as well. I've heard oftentimes people say they give you the key to your classroom and you go in and close the door and try to figure everything out on your own. So having a good social group on campus that you can say, man, this lesson's not working for me, or I've got this kid I just can't reach. And even if they're not in your subject, they can commiserate with what you're going through because they know what you're going through.
What do you enjoy most about your job?
I enjoy the energy that the high school students bring into my classroom. I enjoy the aha moments, like I said, when the choir's singing and all of a sudden we sing a major chord and they hear that and they're like, wow, that was amazing. That was beautiful. I enjoy the seeing the future of, seriously, I know this sounds really sappy, but I see the teenagers who are old enough to know that things need to change, but they're too young to do anything about it because, the majority of them can't even vote. But they see social injustice, they see world injustice, they see things in society, systemic things that need to change, and they can develop their ability to figure out how to make that change. That has nothing to do with my subject matter, but just hearing students talk about, I want this to be different when I'm your age. And then they go out and they make these things happen. And to me, it's hearing the music and having them have that aha moment. It's the youthful energy that the teenagers bring to me that keep me feeling young every day. And then the hope that the students that are sitting in my classroom are going to go out into the world and do what they need to do to vote, to, you know, just stand up or sometimes sit down for things that they believe in and have that confidence to do it, because they're building confidence every day they get older and older and as high school students. So those are the three things that I really, really just enjoy most about my job.
How would you say this career has impacted you in your life?
Um, Gosh, I feel like my dad when I say this, but after teaching for 24 years and just looking at, even just here at EV, I've been looking through old programs and filing some things away, and going back to 2009 and looking at the programs and seeing how many students have come through this classroom, how many students have had me as a teacher, that I have had an opportunity to hopefully maybe influence a little bit, but also what students don't necessarily understand is that while a teacher might be influencing them, the students are influencing the teacher. And I can look at these programs from 2008, 2009, and I look at the names of the students and I can still remember them. I can see their faces because they have had such a positive impact on me in my life. Even the students that didn't like choir, just they come into my classroom and they might not like me and they might not like singing, but they still have an impact on who I am as a human. And that's just it's so huge to me. It's like the time just flies. I can't believe it's been 24 years, to be honest, and I've been here at EV for I think 15 or 16 years now. And it's just an amazing feeling to have, I mean, I have fun every day because I do something I love, and I mostly have students that also really like it. So every day is just fun, and it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like work. It just doesn't feel like work every day. And I really, that's a huge impact on what students have done for me.
Do you have any last words of advice for aspiring teachers and or choir directors?
Um, if you really want to do this, do it. Do it with everything you have. Don't hold back. Let your passion out. Let your students know you're passionate about what you do. However that is, I mean, not everybody can be me or anybody else, but if you bring your authenticity to the job and you bring your true love of what you're doing to your students, they will learn to love it and they will give back as much as they can. Not always as much. I mean, I know my students don't give as much as I give back to me, but I do know that my students are giving me on most days of the week as much as they can to give back the energy I'm giving to them. So go for it, go all in, love it, embrace the struggles, learn from your mistakes. I've made a ton of mistakes in my first 4, 5, 6 years of teaching. I learned from them, I grew from them, and I don't make them anymore. So it's, yeah, do it. Just do it.
And that concludes our interview. Thank you.